Nau mai te rā, haere rā te pō. Toia e tamanui te rā ngā māramatanga kia whitia, ki runga i tā tātou kaupapa i ki ana ko Party People haumie, huie, tai kie. Welcome to Party People, brought to you by the Public Interest Journalism Fund. I'm Mihingarangi Forbes, and today is Tuesday the 7th of December, just 18 more sleeps until Christmas. And speaking of Christmas, I'm joined by two people who without a doubt are definitely on Santa's naughty list. Shane Te Pau and Tauhinari tēnā kōrua, kei te pēhea.
Well, all good. You know the problem?
No.
I've been on that list for 60 years, and the last year I was expecting to come off.
And no.
Well, what happened? Santa's in lockdown.
Is he though?
Of course, I was Santa once in, I think, 83, 84. I got arrested, part of the anti-apartheid sort of movement at the time. So me and Santa have got some bad history. There you go.
Have you ever been Santa? At the
have.
kohanga,
I was Santa in Kaikohe one year when the last one, the week before, they threw water bombs and stuff at him. So I stepped in, and yeah, it was good. It was good fun. It was good fun. I got out of alive.
Yes. Someone this week suggested that Shane Te Pau was the new Māori Letterman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't go for the scruffy look.
No.
I like it.
Hey, it's just
like
dirty. Paru.
Yeah. Hey, well, let's talk about some kaupapa.
Sure.
Sorry, carry on, Mr.
No, I was
Letterman.
just going to say I actually got a message from someone who said I like the look, Daddy Bear. One of our followers. So there you go.
Yeah, I like the look.
Yeah, but your missus shouldn't do that.
It's coming off this Friday.
Up to 40 claimants will give evidence under urgency to the Waitangi Tribunal, dealing with the circumstances that many believe have been unfair and unjust, had an unfair and unjust impact on Māori. So the Māori Council, Māori leaders, health professionals and the National Health Coalition will participate in the hearings. Meanwhile, we heard this morning the High Court has instructed the Ministry of Health to review a decision not to share those details of unvaccinated Māori with whānau order. So let's just start there, Tau. This is the second time round it's been to court. Whānau order has taken the Ministry to account. The Ministry's been told it's got to meet the requirements, it's got to review its decision. John Tamihere told Morning Report this morning the information's critical. What do you make of it?
Oh, I'm actually shocked that this is the second time that the highest court in the land is telling one of our major agencies, pull finger and get on with it, because that's basically what they've said. Why is it that a Māori organisation who's at the coalface, Ministry of Health aren't at the coalface, these people are at the coalface of our communities. They are delivering services that are designed by Māori for Māori. And we have to spend $200,000 or $300,000 every 5 minutes just to go to court to get some information?
Shane, whānau order is only asking for the data of the unvaccinated Māori. Not everyone, just that cohort that is, and there's 20% of those who are missing. What do you make of it?
Well, what we have to do is we have to change the State Sector Act, because the powers of the ministers are relatively limited. Minister Little and Minister Jackson made it very clear they want that information handed over. They can't order the Director General of Health to do it.
Yeah, so who's making the decision?
The judge.
It's the construct of the way in which the State Sector acts. It's not good enough, though. It's got to be handed over. Time is not on our side.
So is this Deputy Secretary's...
But the whole thing, and you've got to wind this into what is going on in front of the tribunal. It's everything. And we should have had this stuff sorted by early September.
Yeah. So we're talking now about the Waitangi Tribunal claim.
I think you have to put them together.
Yeah. So what do you think is the strongest evidence that will be presented?
Oh, I think just that if we had have done what we should have done back in September, we would have already been very, very close to 90%.
Yeah.
Okay, why is it important now?
It's important now because we need to learn from the mistakes that have been cast upon us. They weren't our mistakes, they were the system's mistake, and we need to look forward. This is, without a doubt, atypical. This is structural racism
This is not...
Because what it does is it imposes a Pākehā view when we're looking for Māori solutions. This is structural racism, and we've got to get rid of it because it doesn't work for anyone.
And it's not the system's fault. It's the Ministry of Health's fault. It's those that control the levers. That's their fault.
They'll be all listening though. You've got some really big hitters in there, Dr. Rawiri Jansen, John Tamihiri, Lady Tureiti Moxham. Will the ministers, the government be concerned about this?
Oh, I think they will, but like Shane says, I think it will give them some ammunition for the new Māori Health Authority. And I can't wait till that happens, because if we did have it, a proper Māori Health Authority, then none of this would have happened.
Yeah, I think there will be some ministers that privately were saying this is a good thing, this is proven why we need change, and we need to in fact have better resourcing, we need to make it better than we originally intended. So I think some of the Labour ministers will want this, and I think some of the more well-meaning Pākehā within Parliament will want this change, because what we do know is that the current system does not meet the needs of Māori, it does not meet the needs of taxpayers, and it doesn't meet the needs of the health system as a whole. It's a complete failure.
Yes, the Who we talked to spoke with Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern at the weekend, and we talked about, has this been probably a forced and not planned good run-up for the Māori Health Authority?
Yeah.
And, she said absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, but, at the end of the day, they are the government.
Yeah.
They made those choices back in September when they decided not to follow what was put in front of them. So although I blame the Ministry of Health, I blame the Minister of Health and the Minister in charge of COVID, blah, blah, blah. Because at the end of the day, that's where the power lies. It's with the boss. She's the boss, she's the Prime Minister.
What about the Associate Minister, Penny Henare, and the Minister for Whānau? Because we had promises for the whole year that that there was that we didn't need targeted Māori vaccination rollout because there was going to be need, it was going to be needs-based, and the rest of it.
Look, I'm really not that keen to criticise Minister Henare and Minister Jackson, because within their ability and within the power structures that exist, I think they've delivered pretty well for us, and particularly going forward. I think overall they have. I think that overall they have, but it's just about our ongoing relationship, and this is why, Mr. Luxon. Partnership doesn't work. We need co-governance, but in fact, what we need is.
How come you never criticise your mates? But you, in the same breath, you turn around and criticise Luxon, who's only been in the job for a week. For goodness' sake, come on,
I criticise them plenty of times.
Come on.
No,
stop protecting your Maoris out in Labour.
What we agree on, Tony, is the rollout wasn't good.
Isn't it about critiquing politics, though?
Sorry?
Isn't it about critiquing politics?
Oh, yeah. Not a problem. But critique the people in power. For goodness' sake, Luxon and even Judith doesn't even have any power.
So what more could those two ministers have done, Minister Henare and Minister
They could have belted. One, they could have belted the table harder, and two, they could have come out and publicly said that, but they didn't.
Well, did Willie Jackson not?
Yeah, he did.
I think he did.
Well, how about throwing your warrant in, saying, if you don't do this, I'm gone? How about that?
Because
we wouldn't want to go there.
Because once you leave the
boys might lose their job.
Because once you leave the table, you leave the table.
Yeah. Okay. Christopher Luxon's reshuffle this week. That's been big news. Despite two Māori MPs in the top 10, Dr. Shane Reti has moved from 3rd to 5th on the list, while Salma Bridges has made the cut. Shane, is that a demotion for Dr. Reti?
Well, sort of. He was the deputy leader, and I could understand once Luxon was elected that you couldn't have two guys. I can totally understand that, but the reality is that I think that Shane Reti was a good news story, was the most capable opposition member for the last 12 months. It's just the nature of politics. Look, you've got to give it to Simon Bridges. Sort of his souffle didn't quite rise to the top, but he's got the second most important job in opposition, and that's the spokesperson in terms of finance.
What do you think?
As Sansa Stark once said, the head of the wolf pack dies, but the wolf pack survives, and that's what we're seeing roll out. You got the lone wolf, Judith. She died. but the pack survives. They just got a new leader.
Yes, engari kei te oro tonu au rangatira, those leaders are still alive within the pack.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that the corpse of Judith is still sort of wriggling around at number 19 or wherever she is. I'm disappointed. I'm actually disappointed that Simon's there because he was part of what was undermining this last 4 years of national.
Yeah.
I think Luxon will be a surprise.
Yeah, part of the problem ATO they've got a very small caucus, and just by given the very nature of the small muscle caucus, then you have sort of talent issues.
I know it's difficult for you, but tell me, do you think he's performed well as the new leader?
Well, I think that he, the adults are in charge of the party, and they're much better off than they were 2 weeks ago. From that perspective, I think he did. I think that he's brought some fresh sort of faces to the front bench. So yeah, from that perspective, that
has he done a good job?
I'm not a fan. And
I didn't ask that question. Has he done a good job?
No, I don't think he has.
Oh,
I think
why is it so difficult for you to?
If you
just after 1 week,
you asked me the question.
1 week.
I'll give you an answer.
Okay.
I'll give you the answer if you
Chris
be quiet for a second.
Chris Luxon tweeted, "I'm confident."
Christopher
Luxon tweeted, "I'm confident that when you put any of National's shadow ministers against their Labour counterparts, you'll see that the National MPs have a deep experience, the political skill, the work ethic, and the intellectual grunt to come out on top every time." So last week you both commented on how well Nanaia Mahuta was doing in her portfolios, including local government. So I want to, based on what the new leader of the National Party has said, let's look at the opposition MP for local government, Simon Watt.
Who?
Simon Watt, who's last in the lineup. Does he have the intellectual grunt of a Minister Mahuta?
No.
Well, yeah, well, I don't know, but I'll tell you what.
Just yes or no will do.
No, well, I don't know because I don't know him. Neither
just
do you.
Call it yes or no.
But I have seen him, I don't think he has the intellectual grunt to match Minister Mahuta, because when it comes to intellectual grunt and knowing the detail of her portfolio, Nanaia's got it sorted.
But you wouldn't expect the leader of the team to crap on his own team.
No, but it's a challenge, isn't it?
Oh, it's a challenge. Nobody's denying that it's a challenge.
Yeah, so it's a challenge that needs to be tested. So let's test one. What about Hari Te Hipango versus Willie Jackson? So in the Māori development portfolio, has she got the goods?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
She's also got Penny Henari's whānau ora and Calvin Davis's portfolio for children, which is Oranga Tamariki. Shane?
And also quite lowly ranked, where, both Minister Jackson
but just in terms of portfolio, if you're talking about intellectual grunt, she's a former lawyer.
I've tried to give her a fair go. She does not have the intellectual grunt, and also, to be honest, she's not that well respected within her own caucus.
And this is the guy that goes to the National Party caucus every Tuesday.
I've got one. Diversity. So on the issue of diversity, I'm coming to you. Leader Chris Luxon says there's a hell of a lot of work to do to make sure that they're building a national party that gets to all communities, and he says that means they have more work to do on diversity. So tō whā soifua to Judith Collins and āwhio mai to Dr. Shane Reti in the Pacific portfolio. What's your thoughts on that? Yeah,
it's interesting. Hey? I mean, I've heard nearly every National Party leader since Bolger talk the same language, and for it to change, it needs that the workings of the inner party. The president, the board members, those sorts of things need to change. If you're talking about diversity, let's get it on. But they only have the language, they don't have the actions.
Well, you can only do what you can do with the people you've got to, right? So 2 Māori in the top 10, and actually I think there's 6 men, 4 women. It's not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're talking about blood quantum and male and female, yeah, great, diverse top 10.
Yeah, you're talking about back offices and things like that.
But it goes deeper than that. And if the political wing has the language, but does the board and the party outside of Wellington have the actions?
Also, look, in 2021, the only Pacific spokesperson should be a sister or brother from Pacifica. This is 2021, and yes,
we're from the Pacific.
They were decimated in 2020, but the selection process ought to have protected Pacifica people higher up on the list. And that's why lists are designed
so is
for...
that why what we're seeing is that, and they had a couple of women, Pacifica women, who had worked in the Pacific community who fell off the list when they lost. So is that about parties having to look at the way that they stack up
and
their
also
lists?
lists are about ensuring that those type of constituencies are looked after. Remember, even when Labour went down the gurgler, they had their Pacifica members and their Māori members higher on the list to afford them a greater level of protection, because when the tide goes out, baby, it goes out big time.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think, if you recall, I think all the Māori ministers, Māori MPs came off the list.
Yep.
It was a strategy at one time. Southland MP, Joseph Moni, at number 31 on the list, has treaty negotiations portfolio. Shane, this portfolio is sitting with an MP who's listed third from last, but when I had a look at his maiden speech, grew up in the Hawke's Bay, described himself as growing up in poverty, even lived on the streets for a week or so at 11 years old, left school, fell out of school into the life of hard knocks before studying law at Waikato University. What do you make of this selection?
Well, he, first of all, I think it's a slap on the face that you've got someone right at the tail end who's got such an important portfolio, because numbers do count, lists, places in the shadow cabinet and potential ministers do count. The other thing is that, I get hoa with people who have these type of backstories. Just because you've been poor, just because you've had a bit of bad experience in life, doesn't mean you share our experiences. What's the next line? No, some of my best friends are married. I don't sort of buy those backstories.
Some of my best friends are Labour people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, as a lawyer, I think I was reading another story about him. He was an advocate for youth who got themselves into trouble.
Yep. I don't know anything about him. The one thing I will agree with Shane is that when you're dealing with portfolios, I think when it's about treaty negotiations and working with the iwi, you're looking at front bench rather than way back by the door.
It's not a role you serve your apprenticeship on, eh? You don't serve your apprenticeship on it.
It's about whakamana the portfolio.
Is that right? So does it matter where the portfolio is sitting in the list and with who?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely, it does.
So what does it say about treaty negotiations?
That they're not taking it serious, that they haven't got the talent at the front end, at the front end, and that it's not. An opposition doesn't have a level of importance.
Which is interesting, because the National Party is said to have had a really good reputation with Chris Finlayson in the earlier days getting through the treaty.
Chris was sublime.
One of the best.
Chris Finlayson was sublime in the fact that, one, he knew what to do. Two, he got around and saw everybody, talked to anybody that would listen, that was the same intellect as Chris. So I don't know about this guy. And so it's a hard call, but I do believe that if you want to add mana to the portfolio, then you will give it its due worth.
With what you've heard and looking at the top 10, top 20, I think they're calling it, where do you think this new group sits, this new National Party sits in terms of the ACT Party, the Māori Party,
I think it's probably moved a bit more to the centre than it did when Judith was around. However, I think that Christopher Luxon will have to send some people off to the peripheral to try and drag that vote back. They are contending against ACT as much as they are contending against Labour, so he has to get all that right. He got a little bit of time, take a deep breath. He should have, I think on Māori issues, he should have followed Chris Finlayson's advice when he just said, hey, learn, go and court it all, talk to people before you start making sort of announcement on Māori issues.
What do you think about this as the new opposition?
I think it's capable, very capable. I like the fact that Nicola Willis is there. I like the fact that Erica Stanford is there. I even like the fact that Chris Bishop is there. I mean, a lot of people don't like him, but you need somebody like that person. So in terms of, are they capable? Hell yes. Will they take it to the government? Hell yes. Will they win? Don't know.
But things can change. 2002, Helen Clark decimated the National Party in English. 2005, if it wasn't for the 3Ms, Mangere, Manirewa and Manukau East, Don Brash would have been the Prime Minister. Things can change quickly. Let's
talk about the year's nearly over. Let's talk about the minor parties and how they've performed. So the polls have been kind to the ACT Party, up on 16% in the News Hub poll, which was just at the end of November. The Greens on that poll, 7.2, Māori Party up on 2.1. Can you call the ACT Party a minor party on 16%? What's the secret to David Seymour's
Anybody
success?
on 16% is a minor party. End of story. Does it stay there? I doubt very much whether it will. I think Luxon's main job is to drag back some of that centre or that centre right back into the centre with the old family.
Will David Seymour be a bit worried about Luxon?
I think he will. I think he will because I think Luxon he's more than capable. He does. Like I said last week, he's a bit of a clone of John Key. Now, John Key didn't want to upset too many people, and Luxon will learn from that. He's a centre-right politician.
What do you think? Do you think ACT Party will bleed a few votes?
Yeah, I think they will bleed
poll?
a few votes. 16% really isn't minor. That's quite significant. And at 16%, people take you seriously. You can raise a heck of a lot of money. I understand that ACT is doing that, but they will be probably concerned, but also an opportunity if they do see Chris Luxon moving to the centre. It might give them greater ability to take some of that vote that's still available on the right. So, opportunity and threat.
And they raised quite a few headlines to the ACT Party.
Yeah.
I mean, what have they done well this year?
Oh, I think what David Seymour has done is honed his skills in that dog whistle politics, because what he wants to do is get on the front page, and he always does that by using Māori as the whipping boy.
Boom.
Let's go to the Māori Party.
Yeah.
They've been vocal throughout the pandemic. How have the two leaders performed?
Well, sometimes I think their message is a little bit confusing, but I understand that they are seen as sort of the rebel element within Māori politics, and I think that works well for them. I think that Debbie has raised her profile, and I think that seat in Te Taihauru is under real threat, and Adrian and Labour recognise that.
This time last year, you were two ticks Māori Party, I think, I recall from around the elections. How have they performed?
I think they've performed as well as they can. There are personally there are issues that I worry about. Like, is the Māori Party like just a party of cosplay people? Not the party, the wider party, but the MPs that we see. I hope that they get more gravitas as the
where do they
years
need
by.
to put their toe in the ground?
Oh, I think it is around Māori education. It is around getting resources for education, resources for Māori health. The Māori Health Authority is a good platform, and I think that they should be pumping out what they expect of a Māori Health Authority as well.
They've been working with Whānau Order and those organisations, the Māori Health Coalition and things. Is that a good place for them to be kind of advocating for those groups?
Yeah, but the problem that has is that sort of mainstream stuff, they haven't found a wedge issue yet, and maybe that will come up. Maybe it will be on greater strength in terms of co-governance in respect to our water. They haven't got that wedge issues, and the Māori Party is a wedge issue political force, and they've got to find that.
Let's look at the Green Party now. Co-leader and Minister Marama Davidson has been working on family and sexual violence strategy. It's a 25-year plan. It's been announced just today, a 40-step action plan. Experts in the field say it's fantastic. It's targeted for Māori, Pacifica ethnic communities, older people, males who have experienced violence, LGBTQI, disabled trans women impacted by violence. I mean, it's a big one for Marama. What do you think about their progress?
I don't know, but let's talk really seriously about the Greens. They are they in power or aren't they? They're in coalition or aren't they? It worries me that you've got a whole bunch of people, and some of them I quite enjoy their politics as well, especially Julianne Genter, who rides a bike to give birth. I think she's the most amazing woman that I've ever come across, quite frankly. Twice she gets on a bike, has a baby, goes back to work. It's amazing. The Greens, well, I'm just not impressed with where they are. Individually, there's some really cool ones, and they say some really awesome stuff, and they want awesome plans. But okay, well, why don't you do something about it then?
But isn't this is the strategy?
Well, it's always a problem, when you're a junior partner of a government and you've got nowhere else to go to. You've got either opposition or you want to remain in power. So you are pretty limited. But, a lot of their issues have now become mainstream. We've seen quite a major significant move from the largest city in Aotearoa and Phil Goff's $1.2 billion, whatever it is, fund.
Oh, that rip-off.
So many of those issues have now become mainstream. So in terms of policy development and implementation, the Greens have had a good year.
You don't want to piss the Greens off just in case they're right.
Meanwhile, Chloe Swarbrick sometimes in the polls has polled higher than her leader. You were talking about you're not sure what they are. Is it time for a refresh for them, perhaps?
Oh, I think every party needs to make sure that they are looking fresh and actually they look as though they're needed. And maybe the Greens might want to look at their leadership, might want to look at their leadership structure.
Yeah, that's right, because I think they have to change their constitution, don't they?
Yeah.
To have because it says one male, one female. I like James, and I think he's thoughtful. I think that he is a good politician. He doesn't play the person, he plays the actual game. But I think he's looking a bit tired, and I just think that when you've got someone who has obviously popular support, particularly amongst younger people, you've got to bring them up to the front of the house, and I think Chloe's time is coming.
Is this kind of history repeating itself with MMP, though? If you look at those minor parties that attached themselves to governments like the Māori Party last time with the National, they became a bit tired at the end? Yeah,
I think so. I don't think they're at the end.
No,
yet.
Not yet.
I still think that this government
could do another term.
Is still got another term to go before they toddle off to the UN.
Before by and large people get hoa what they make.
That's right.
That's the nature of
people are going to get pissed off with them.
Yeah.
Ka pai. Well, that's us. That's us for the week. That's us, party people. Make sure to check us out on the RNZ YouTube channel, the Facebook page as well. And if you really want to be in Santa's good book, subscribe to our podcast, rate and review. Tēnā koutou. E mihi ana ki te Puna Whakatongarewa nāna tēnei kaupapa I Utu. Nō reira e aku rangatira. Ko hoki anō a party people ki tōna tauranga. Kia tau te Māori, kia koutou kato. Tēnei a party people, kātou. Kia ora.